Hello, and welcome to another episode of Dealer Talk. So, I'm very excited for our conversation today. The topic we're going to be discussing is one that Erik and I haven't really delved deep in yet. And so I'm very excited to introduce our guest and, start having our conversation. But before I do that, let me check in really quick with my co-host, Erik. Hey, Erik, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Oh, Herb, I'm here. Let's do this, Dealer Herb.
All right, man, let's get rolling. So the person we have today is, wow, man, such an incredible background. He's a nationally known speaker, consultant, and performance coach. He's an author of several books, has over 20 years of experience working within the automotive industry with dealerships throughout the country. And I'm just very, very excited to have a conversation. So let's introduce Mr. Joseph Rosales. Joseph, how you doing, man?
I'm fantastic. How are you guys?
Fired up and ready. Let's go, man. Feed us.
Yeah.
Feed us.
Yeah, we're super excited to have you on. Like I mentioned, I think that this is a topic that we really haven't covered in depth yet. And so I'm very excited to have the conversation. But before we get going here for the listeners, could you just kind of give us a recap of your background and what you're currently up to?
Well, sure. I've been in retail my entire life. And for many years before I came to the automotive business, I was in high-end men's clothing and fine jewelry. The same business, people buying a product and they're served by employees. And they come to a place to have an experience and to buy a product or a service. And I've seen a lot of changes like you guys have over the last 20 years. And, we're seeing major shifts in the automotive dealership environment and the way consumers engage the whole idea of purchasing a vehicle. And unfortunately, I'm not seeing a lot of change happening within the dealerships. So it's pretty exciting and challenging time for automotive dealerships across the country. And as you guys know, I lived out east in the Mid-Atlantic states, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, that whole area there for almost 30 years. And in the end, it's not that different between the east and the west. There's a few different operational changes here and there in dealerships, but it's the same. It's the same gig. People want to come in and buy a car and have a great experience and feel comfortable and feel appreciated. Again, good things, exciting things happening. But as you know, the tsunami of change in the automotive business is coming, and it's here in many areas. But it's coming. And it's going to continue to come.
Yeah, no, I totally, I'm with you on that for sure. So one of the things that I wanted to ask, given your background and the fact that you're working with dealerships in the East Coast and the West Coast, you live in Phoenix now, right?
Right.
Yeah. So given that you have your finger on the pulse, if you will, in all these different markets. What do you see? What's the differentiators? What's the one thing, or is there commonality between them? Or, what are you seeing with all this exposure?
Well, it's an interesting question because, obviously I live in a world where I'm always positive about, the glass is filling. I don't even know if it's half full. It's filling. It's things are great. But I'll tell you that, when 10, 15 years ago, when we started seeing the changes in the way consumers accessed information. I know you've heard the statistics that, customers used to go to 4 or 5 dealerships and they would get the brochures and they would learn, about the vehicles, and you'd have several shots at a customer buying a car from a dealership. Where today customers do, several hours worth of research on a vehicle that they're interested in, and they push a button and they get quotes and they make a couple calls and they go to one dealership, maybe one and a half, and they buy. And that's changed dramatically. But what's interesting, because I personally am involved in dealing with our clients in their dealerships. We do all of our work in dealership. We don't speak outside of dealerships very often or do work outside of dealerships because that's their home. That's where you see what's really going on. That's where you see the culture in place. That's where you see the actual operations producing or not producing, their processes producing or not producing the result that they're looking for. And that's where you get to see the people playing on their own field. And it's interesting because sometimes when you go into a dealership, as beautiful as the dealership is, as gorgeous as the facility is, as soon as you start talking to the people, it's like going back in a time capsule. They're still greeting you, hi, welcome to XYZ dealership. My name is Joseph and your name is, and blah, blah, blah. And they pat the kids on the head and they drag them to their desk and they start doing an interview to find out what the customer's looking for, which is very important. Obviously, we need to land on the right car. But then the customer sits and waits for them to go and get the car, and then they go back and forth to the tower, and they start talking to the manager about what the customer's looking for, and the manager's asking them questions, and the customer's sitting there, la 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 la. What's going on? It still takes, and this is shocking, it still takes sometimes 3, 4, 5 hours to buy a car. And it's crazy that and the person that is the person that hates it most is the consumer. And I've heard it said a number of different ways, but sometimes people feel like I'd rather go to the dentist and get my teeth cleaned or a root canal than buy a car. And more and more and more, because of the internet and because of all the blog sites and because of all the resources that consumers have available to them at the click of a button or on their phone or on their laptop, they're learning how to negotiate with dealerships. I mean, type in today, buying a new car or negotiating for a new car. You will see pages and pages of ex-salespeople, pontificating on how to negotiate with a dealership. And sometimes people come in with their checklist that they printed off of these websites.
So true.
About what they're supposed to say and not say, what they're supposed to ask for, and how they research the true invoice and the true costs on a vehicle. So it's getting tougher and tougher to successfully negotiate a deal with a customer when a customer's got all kinds of information and all kinds of strategies set up before they come in the door. So the consumer has changed dramatically in their way they engage a car buying transaction. Yet the dealerships have not. There's so many different ways to engage a customer using technology that I just don't see out there. I don't see it. It doesn't matter if it's a multi-million-dollar facility or one that is in need of renovation. The operations is the same. It's go back 15, 20 years, and that's how they did it.
Yeah, that's so fascinating. We had a conversation last week about the same kind of like mental roadblock of separation between the customer to this imaginary Oz behind the curtain entity, and leaving the customer to think about it. I mean, do you from a training standpoint, how do you advise the dealership? Do you advise them to maybe alter that, or do you enhance the system they have? I mean, from your standpoint.
Well, it's interesting. I've very, very clear with our clients that we don't make changes to anything until we really do a thorough assessment of a business. I'm always the first person to say, it's funny, people ask me, so Joseph, how can you help us? And my answer is, I don't know. Because I don't know what you're doing.
That's right.
So, I'm not going I golf a lot, and I'm not going to make suggestions to somebody's golf game if I've never seen them swing the club, if I've never been on the course with them, and watch them manage the course and make, strategic shots around the layout. So it's the same in business. But once we spend some time, whether it's a day or two, usually in a day, we can get a real good picture of what people are doing. And then we can start to look at process. One of the things that and I mentioned this to Herb in our briefing the other day, we kind of look at three sides of the business. We look at the people. Who do you have working for you? We look at the process. What are your processes that move a customer from A to Z? And then, very importantly, what is the performance of those processes? Because you guys know you can have great people with broken processes, and then they're going to fail.
Yep.
Yes.
Or you can have great processes with people that don't execute those processes, and again, you fall short. But you guys okay? I'm hearing some weird noise in the background.
Yeah, I think we're good.
Okay. But if you, and I know this sounds utopian, but if you have solid people, they don't have to be the greatest people, but they have to be solid. They have to be motivated. They have to be inspired. They have to know why they're doing this, and they have to want to do this. If you get solid people and you've got really good process that is intelligent, that is designed to accomplish the result that you're looking for, moving that customer again from A to Z and through whatever that process is. Some people call it the road to the sale, and I've seen 8 steps, 12 steps, 24 steps. I saw one that a guy broke it into 32 steps.
Oh my gosh!
It's the same thing. It's you start with the meet and greet and you end with delivery and follow up, and everything in between. But those processes, people need to be able to bring the processes to life. I wrote an article many years ago called "Bringing Your Process to Life." You've got that greeting could be, "Hi, my name is Joseph, and you are," and it can be that, or it can be something so much more engaging. One of the things that we look at, for example, when we break a business down, we start looking at everything. How do they greet? How are they, doing the interview process where they're determining wants and needs? How do they select the product? How do they go through what many people call the walk around? I call it product presentation because walk around is kind of more sterile to me. Product presentation is much more engaging.
Nice.
We did a program for a client out east where we developed a product presentation competition for them, and all their dealerships in their group competed with each other. And it was amazing to me, guys, how even the top 10 finishers, the people that won the money, weren't that good. Because they just did it the way that I've always done it, and they didn't really bring life to the process. You've got to engage people today. You've got to do some things that make that customer experience the vehicle in a way that moves them. You've got to move people. You've got to get people to say, "Wow, I didn't even know that did that. That's so cool." We call it moving their emotional needle. If you can move their emotional needle 4 or 5 times during that product presentation, whether it's the product presentation and the test drive combined, which we call the demonstration drive, because it's really more of a demonstration of the car, not just a test of the car. If you can move their emotional needle, they're gonna buy, because we know that people buy boats, they buy cars, they buy houses, they buy businesses, they get married, they do all kinds of things in their life based on emotions, not based on facts. And, people think that this business is all about facts and it's all about price. It's not.
Right.
I mean, I sold jewelry, and back when I was doing that, a $30,000 ring was a ton of money. And I put rings on people's fingers, and $30,000 later, 10 minutes later, they're walking out the door. Yeah. Well, it was emotional. It wasn't, how many facets it had. Was it pretty? Did it look good? And can I buy it? So whether it was $1,000 ring or a $30,000, necklace, it's the same thing, but you got to move people. And I think that's one of the things that we try and implant in our clients is passion is critical, because it's emotion, but it's got to be directed in the right way. I see a lot of negative passion in dealerships, and I see a lot of positive passion in dealerships. So when customers come to a dealership, they want to have a great experience, and they want to meet somebody who seems interested in helping them accomplish what they want to accomplish and buy the car that they want to buy, not the car we want to sell them. So, there's so many ways to approach this, and I wish we had, more than 30 minutes, but, we've got a timeline to stay on, but, we break things down, the consumer experience. What is the consumer experience when they walk into your dealership? Have the dealerships adapted to what kind of customers want? How many customers, and I heard a statistic from one of my dealer groups the other day, they've tracked this. About 90% of customers that walk in the door have already done more than 5 hours worth of research on the vehicle. 90% of customers do more than 5 hours worth of research before they walk in the door. Yet, I've seen salespeople poo-poo the information that the customer just spent 5 hours researching. That doesn't fly. That's probably not, blah, 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 or whatever they say. Instead of engaging, hey, that's great. I'm so glad that you spent some time researching the vehicle and really understanding the capabilities of it. What kind of questions do you have? And making the customer feel appreciated and respected for the 5 hours or 10 hours worth of research they just did. I mean, that makes sense, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. It's funny because this kind of flows in nicely with my next question here. So you talk about development and optimization of sales and service teams, right? What do you mean by optimization?
Well, I've always believed that optimization is really a taking your business, taking your process, taking your performance to the highest level you can, given the resources, talents, skills, and people that you have. Improvement could be like going from a grade C to a grade B, which is okay. But what if you're capable of going to a grade A or a B plus or an A minus? What if you're a salesperson and you move from 9 cars a month to 11 cars a month? That's great. That's 2 cars a month. That's awesome. But what if that same salesperson is capable of selling 15 cars a month or 20 cars a month? It's interesting. I was talking, again, we heard the other day, and we were talking about how one of the things that we see again in almost all dealerships, and it's a simple thing, but it's profound when in the results that it can produce, is a simple plan for every single salesperson to move from where they are today to where they'd like to be. And I know this to be true, and anybody can test this. You can ask a salesperson, where are you? How many cars a month are you selling now? And they say 12. Just give me a number, 12. And you say, okay, where would you like to be? Oh, I'd like to be at 20. Okay, awesome. That's great. And you look at them and they say, what's your plan? And they look at you like, I don't really have a plan. I'm just going to maybe work on my day off. I'm going to make a few more phone calls. I'll try and take a few more ups. That's not a plan. What if every single sales consultant in a dealership had a personalized, individualized, customized plan based on their goals, their aspirations, their needs, their talent, that move them from where they are to where they could be, and that was optimized, not just improved. See, I believe that most dealerships, and this is a crazy statistic, but I believe that most dealerships are functioning someplace or producing someplace around 60% of their potential. And sometimes when I say that, people go, what? Come on. And I go, well, let me ask you a question. Let's look at your sales consultant, because every dealership rises and falls on the performance of their sales team. Would you agree to that?
Absolutely. Yes.
Yes.
You're only going to sell what your people sell. And I mean, you might have some sales managers that, put some, some lease deals in, or some, go to rental car. That happens too when they make their numbers. But in the end, if your salespeople are at 60%, your dealership's at close to 60%. So how do we move a salesperson from 12 cars to 15 cars or to 18 cars? And it's not teaching them how to do the road to the sale better. It's got more to do with having them engage the potential of their own business development activities that they're not tapping into. For example, we know that most salespeople, here's a perfect one. Most salespeople, when you ask them, so what's your percentage of referral business that comes in the door for you? Most of them either A, don't know, or B, they start to count on their fingers. Let's see, last month I got 1 or 2. I got 3 last month. So okay, so I'm at 15%. Awesome. That's 15% is a great start. We know the target from all of our sales teams. Our target is 30% referrals for every single person on that team. What if a dealership went from 10% referrals to 30% referrals?
Oh my gosh.
But let me give you guys, and anybody listening, please write this down. There are three very important elements to gaining high levels of referrals. Number one, you got to earn it. And I think most people listening are earning the right to ask for a referral because they're doing as great a job as they know how. Could they do better? Sure, most people can. But you got to earn the right. Secondly, you got to ask. But that's where it gets tricky. It's not if you ask, it's how you ask and when you ask. That's very important. I have people say, when do you ask for referrals? And they say, well, I ask at the beginning. Or it's the last thing I do. When they're rolling out the driveway, I ask, hey, if you have any friends or family need a car, let me know. I'll hook them up. And they throw a couple cards in the customer's seat and they drive away. That's such the wrong time to ask for referrals. But that's what people do because that's what they were told. So there's a more strategic time to ask for referrals, and it's got to do probably sometime in that window of when we're sitting after F&I and before delivery. There's a great time to ask for referrals or to talk about referrals or to begin the conversation about referrals. But the third step, guys, you earn, you ask. The third step is the one that most people just don't do, and that's learn to cultivate. If you plant a seed and you nurture that seed, there will be a harvest. It's the law of nature. If you plant a seed and you nurture it, there will be a harvest. But I don't know when. Could be tomorrow. Could be next week. Could be next month. Could be next year. But I'll tell you what's interesting. If people would learn to cultivate the referrals, and we do a lot of work in this area, learn to cultivate referrals and to stay in contact with the customer with information that is helpful to the customer having a great ownership experience, not necessarily to buy something. I just bought a car from you. Why are you sending me information about buying another one? That call that people make at 30 days and 45 days. Hi, this is Joseph from XYZ. How's it going? How's the family? How's the car? Any questions? Blah, blah, blah. Oh, and by the way, if you know anybody that needs a car, let me know. The customer says, yeah, I'll let you know if I know somebody. Click, done. They make that walk to it done. Now what happens? You're done. You can't call more than a couple times.
So true.
There's another strategy out there that if you put this in place, puts information in front of customers for long spans of time, and none of it's about buying another car. It's about having a great ownership experience. We could do a whole other session on just referrals.
I mean, the fact of the matter is it's quite obvious that training is so natural, and you're so great at what you do, I'm sure. I just I wanted to ask you this question before we run out of time. So just bear with me. I was reading through your bio, and it says it's all about performance. You said specifically, it's what someone does with what they know that elevates their performance beyond the average, which I love that. Can you just talk to us briefly exactly what you mean by that?
Well, yeah, it's funny because sometimes when I'm sitting down talking with a client early on, I'll ask them and say, so, they'll say, well, we already do training. And, we do training. We train all the time. Okay, great. So, there's an old adage I read many years ago, and I use it now. Is knowledge does not change behavior. Knowledge does not change behavior. How many people do you know in the business that know what to do, but you just don't do it?
Right.
So it's not what somebody knows, it's what somebody does with what they know, and how well they do it, and how often they do it. And that, my friends, is all about coaching. That's all about managing. That's all about leading. If you train people on what to do, and I go in dealerships all the time, and I, by the way, I was on one of these teams for one of the manufacturers where we went in every 3 months, every 4 months, and did a 2-hour session, and we delivered some kick-ass information, and it was great, and everybody loved it, and they went back down the floor and did nothing that they learned. And even worse, 90% of the time, and by the way, in 2017, I personally facilitated 375 workshops in dealerships.
Wow.
That's more than, there's only 365 days in the year.
Yeah. Wow.
I was doing 2 a days. And 90% of the time in dealerships, there was not a sales manager in the room.
Oh, that's crazy, man.
Send salespeople into a room to be trained by somebody else, and when the salespeople walk out and say, that was great, that was awesome, and they get in, and the sales manager says, so what did you learn? Oh, we learned this and this. Again, oh, that's great. Now go back and go sell a car. So where's the support come from? Where does the after session follow-up come from? There isn't any, because we pack up our computers and our projectors and we leave. Well, that was why we don't do that anymore. We don't work for the manufacturers anymore because of that. We need to be there. We need to be intimately involved with our clients. We need to set up coaching programs. We need to teach the managers and leaders of the dealership how to coach and how to follow up and how to set expectations and how to grow their team, not just tell them. I think I mentioned in one of my books, the Customer Service is the Contact Sport. There's a whole chapter on training is more than telling. People in the car business want to take enough time to tell people what to do and hope that they do it. And if they don't, they'll tell them again and again and again, and eventually they'll either do it or they won't. And if they don't do it, they'll either get fired, or if they're nice enough, their manager will keep them because they're selling a few cars, but they're not doing what they're supposed to do. But it's okay. It's the car business. That's not optimizing the performance of people. So, we talk about this whole tsunami of change coming. I mean, it's hard to stay on track with it because there's so many sub pieces. But if we can put, and I really believe that the key to all of this is our sales managers. You can hire great people, but if you don't put them with a great manager, they're going to fail, or they're not going to do as well. So much of what we do in dealerships anymore is working with the sales team and the sales managers and the GSM and the GM to make sure that we're getting the support that we need for our frontline people to succeed at their highest level. Because that's where the dealership can go to 70 or 80% of their potential. I've never seen a dealership operate at 100% of their potential. I don't even know if I've ever seen one at 90, but I've seen them at 80, 85, and they're kicking ass, and they're selling 600-700 cars a month.
Yeah, I mean, definitely opportunity there for growth, which is a good thing, right? Because we were talking in our during our previous to the session, we had kind of like a little meeting, we were talking about that gap, right, from 80 to 20 is always super hard to get that, or 80 to 100, excuse me. There's that 20%. It's super hard to kind of close that gap. Man, we could go forever here. It's been such a great conversation, lots of insight. Really appreciate you coming on, but we're running out of time. So I just wanted to kind of wrap it up, give you an opportunity to let the audience know how they can get in touch with you. Also, if it's okay with you, maybe we could put a link to some of your books on or your all your books on the show notes, give the audience an opportunity to, get some of that insight. But before that, I just want to ask one quick question here that I ask everybody that comes on the show, and that's, where do you see the automotive industry headed in the next 5 years, and why?
Well, the title of this talk was really focused a little bit on the tsunami of change coming, and we talk about the employee experience and how that needs to get better. We talk about the consumer experience and how that needs to adapt. Technology. We just finished a survey of dealerships on the East Coast, West Coast, and everything in between. And it was interesting, but not so surprising maybe, that technology in dealerships is there, but most people aren't using it, and they aren't using it very well. And that's the admission of the management team telling me, we have that technology, but we don't use it, and we don't use it very well. And there's new technologies out there that can really impact the way a consumer sees that business. And it's really all about the customer. I mean, we've been talking about how important it is for our employees, for us to engage them, and that's 100% right. But the employees aren't buying cars from us. It's the consumer. And we sit in the consumer's chair all the time. So whether it's technology or whether it's improving our training and development and coaching and leadership and management plans for our staff, whether it's using more technology, that's where we see the greatest opportunities for improvement. And customers, I mean, when in the history of the car business could people pick up their phone and buy a car and have it delivered to their house within 48 hours? And never go into a dealership? That didn't exist, and it does now. So technology is here. It's like a tsunami. It's coming. You can see it on the horizon, and many dealerships, I hate to use the word, have their head in the sand, but maybe it's not in the sand. Maybe it's just not looking up. But they need to look up and see that this is coming, and how are you addressing it? It's not about focusing on selling the next car. I get it. It's about looking, what are we doing to make our business better, and how are we making our people better, and how can we move our people from 60% to 75%?
Right on, man. Yeah, I agree. Hey, thank you again so much. Let us know how we can get in touch with you. And again, I'll include your contact info, and if you're okay with it, the link to the books in the show notes for the audience.
Yeah. It's the company is the Sales and Service Group. So just www.thesalesandservicegroup.com, and my number's on there. And I'm going to post this transcript of what we talked about on my website. So if people want to go back and see it, they can see it there too. And I'm sure you guys do something similar. But I really enjoyed my time together with you guys this morning. It was great. I hope some people have gotten some key points from it. Nobody's fixed. I don't believe anybody. Oh my gosh, this was it. We're fixing it. No, that's not how it works. You hear something and then you got to go out and do something about it. So all that being said, it was awesome being with you guys, and thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, thanks again. And I don't know if, Erik, you have some final words, some final thoughts? Erik? All right, I guess not. So anyway, thanks again, Joseph. Great conversation, man. We definitely got to have you back on the show. That's all we got, folks. And as usual, we'll talk later.
The podcast you just heard was published with Anchor. Got something you want to say to the creator of this show? Send them a voice message using the Anchor app, free for iOS and Android.